Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss The Northman, starring Alexander Skarsgård, Nicole Kidman, Claes Bang, Anya Taylor-Joy, Ethan Hawke, Bjork, and Willem Dafoe, directed by Robert Eggers. Now, I did go to theaters twice for this, and why is that? It's because the first time, of course, it was a busier show than the second viewing, but the first showing, I didn't get what was going on, and I'm still questioning if I did get what was happening in second viewing. You're gonna have to help me out on this. So, here we go. We get a narration from a demonic voice talking about the movie's plot with the volcano, or it tells the story that's going to tell this movie's story. As the volcano shot is a tremendous shot, in the North Atlantic in ED 895, we get a boy named Amleth announcing that King Arvindil, War Raven, played by Ethan Hawke, has returned home to the kingdom, and his mother, Queen Gudrun, played by Nicole Kidman, as he's greeted by his father while joining them in is Fjolnir the Brotherless, played by Claes Bang, joining them for the return of the king, while Heimer the Fool, played by Willem Dafoe, mocks Fjolnir as he introduces their son Thorir the Proud as a baby, and the dialogue is a bit hard to understand, sure, but it will take repeat watchings to understand the dialogue. And again, I've seen this twice, and so unfortunately, it's not good enough for. But the shots are tremendous, and the cinematography is beautiful to watch, as the actors are pretty good in their roles. But do I like the characters? Some more than others, I'll say. I'll say as a couple of them are wasted. For example, Arvindil and Heimer, as we get a scene at around the first 10 minutes of Amleth act like dogs with Heimer and what's his name, Arvindil, and farts, which was a little too far, but I like the shots as we get close to the faces of Arvindil, Heimer, and Amleth. And I like the way it's shot, and let's be honest here, this movie's a little too long, and I felt the amount of minutes of it, as it's a 2 hour and 16-minute movie, and it's, in my opinion, 15 minutes too long. But the score to this movie is frightening at times, and it could be a horror film set in medieval times. Fjolnir and Arvindil as he invades his kingdom, while Amleth hides himself and leaves and says repeatedly, "I will avenge you, father, I will save you, mother, I will kill you, Fjolnir." Which will lead to the rest of the plot of the movie, and the movie is violent, and there will be times it gets a little bloody, but it's after the death of Christ, so it makes sense. Years later, an adult and buff Amleth, played by Alexander Skarsgård, is a Viking warrior and the toughest there is while rowing a boat during the day, and at night prays to be massive. And Alexander Skarsgård is a big motherfucker. I mean, I know he could kick my ass for damn sure, but I like his portrayal of a character getting revenge on his uncle while the movie progresses, but we see him in action fighting as he's ruthless as hell while howling like a wolf, which was rather fucking random. His Viking soldiers grabs the women while Amleth gets out of it to find revenge on Fjolnir, and the shots at the village was well done, while some of are very haunting, and there's some haunting shots for damn sure, and the nighttime shots are just amazing. I'll talk about why a little later. Amleth sees some kind of voodoo woman telling Amleth, I'll say, to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill Fjolnir. And we move on to the next day as he hears about his Fjolnir and how he lost his kingdom and goes to the village where he lives at, which is in Iceland. And he gets on a boat and he acts like one of the slaves along with Olga the Birch Forest, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, as she knows he's a Northman, as he dreams of being on a tree with the lights of Antarctica, which is a great shot and it looks beautiful. They get to Iceland and walk a long way to get to Fjolnir's village as Olga introduces herself to Amleth, excuse me. And we eventually get Fjolnir and his wife Gudrun and his two sons. One is Thor as an adult, and a second is Gunnar, who is about 10 years old. And I think Fjolnir buys Amleth and Olga as his slaves. And these scenes in Iceland, I swear to God, is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. and Amleth, excuse me, I keep doing that, and Olga have chemistry together that I deeply enjoy. And they act great together while Amleth sneaks out at night to learn Fjolnir's typical schedule while acting like a slave during the day. And I'm actually liking the vision on director Robert Eggers has for this movie. Amleth sees Gudrun combing Fjolnir's hair like he's treating her like a slave while they're married to each other, and that's a betrayal done sadly but convincingly, I'll say. Amleth learns Heimer is dead with a decapitated head with his tongue cut out, and the man witch, I'll call him, does rather some random shit as he voodoos about making a sword like a blacksmith would do, and the score in that scene was absolutely fucking horrifying. While Amleth's heart is revenge towards Fjolnir, I couldn't help but think of 300, where Gerard Butler wants to go to war with the Persians and asks some witches about it, which was an interesting comparison. Amleth fights a giant with a sword, and it looks like Amleth was losing at first, but eventually Amleth stabs the giant in the back and cuts his head off and literally shoves it up his ass, which was hilarious, but at the same time, it went a little too far, as this is supposed to be a fucking comedy, while people were laughing on my first viewing. But Amleth is fortunate enough to get the sword, but it is well shot, but unfortunately it went on a little too long for it should be in the editing room. A dog barks at Amleth, and he scares the doggy away while finding routines of Fjolnir, and he sees Olga waking up by a master as she sells her bottom privates, which is a moment that could be in the editing room floor as well, as that is another scene that went too far for me, as she saw some blood on the bottom privates, and that is something I did not want to see as an image. I'll never get out of my mind, and I haven't felt that since the cat scene in The Shape of Water, as it'll disturb me for days. Amleth talks with Olga about his master plan after leaving the village, and the next scene they go to a friend's place who also has slaves as they play a game of with a ball where they kill each other, and as they play dirty and have very few men left, Amleth decides to play dirty as well, and it's down to Amleth versus a big guy. Like, he's giant, kind of. As Gunnar comes into the game and almost kills Gunnar, the giant I mean, until Amleth attacks the big guy, saving Gunnar's life. And the scene was brutally brave, but it's also brutal. And Amleth gets rewarded by Thorir by giving him privileges, and when he sees Olga by the fire, which is an incredibly spooky shot that sort of freaked me out, or should I say freaked me the fuck out, and Amleth sleeps with Olga without showing Anya Taylor-Joy's breasts. Why? Because they showed her privates for whatever reason. I couldn't tell you. Because I'm not a pervert, and I didn't wish for it in any ways, and they plan on the next night to make Fjolnir's life a living hell, and these scenes look fantastic. Amleth kills some guards of Fjolnir's at night, while the next day, Fjolnir screams for revenge, and some witch thinks a spirit is haunting the village as we move on to nighttime, and the deaths are so fucking brutal. For example, Fjolnir killing a pet dog as it was barking at the master, because of the sounds of wolves, which is a scene I truly did not like for animal cruelty reasons. The movie does take a long time to get to the revenge sequence as it progresses in a draggy kind of way, as cuts some scenes that would slow the movie down and cut out random scenes as well, as so one way we can get a complete 2-hour movie. Someone kills himself while Amleth tries to kill Fjolnir. Now, to be fair, the 2-hour movie thing is because if a movie runs that long and drags like that a bit, it drives me crazy. Someone kills himself while Amleth tries to kill Fjolnir, and Gudrun enters the picture as he reveals he's her son, and Gudrun is shocked he lives, while Gudrun tells Amleth she didn't love King Arvandil, but had him killed along Fjolnir, whom she was in love with from the beginning of the movie, which shocked the hell out of me, and not in a pleasant way. And the movie isn't pleasant to watch at times, but so far I respect it for the shots that are beautiful to look at. I'll say that for damn sure. Amleth kills Thorir while he's asleep, as well as taking his heart out. And the next morning, Fjolnir sees and mourns for his dead son, as Gudrun tells Fjolnir Amleth, is here to kill him. And Fjolnir kills the slaves whom allied with Amleth, as Amleth enters and offers a trade for his son's heart for Olga's life. As Fjolnir almost cuts off her head and Amleth is defeated, and Fjolnir takes Thorir's heart back and gets brutally beat up, and this third act unfortunately falls apart. Starting with these scenes right here, I'll say. Ikril lets Amleth down and lets him escape after getting beaten up by Fjolnir, which was preposterous for sure. We get a random moment with Thorir's funeral, as his character did kind of annoy me, like him or hate him. I don't really like the character as much, as so I found a piece of good riddance, I'll say, while Fjolnir strips naked to his bare ass and wants to kill Amleth, as he with Olga have already escaped off screen, which was clever, as the rest of the and eventually as they rest and eventually get to a river, as Amleth leaves Olga, as she's been around since childhood, which I don't know if that makes sense. This is the part where I'm going to be a little bit questionable on, which doesn't make much sense because she's pregnant with his twins, and as he goes, Olga is afraid of Amleth, I should say, as he goes back to Iceland to kill Fjolnir. And the shot where she shakes is again a great shot, but he gets back to the village and frees the slaves to kill Gudrun and Gunnar, and tries to stab Amleth, Gunnar does. But Amleth kills Gunnar, and Fjolnir sees them lying dead and finds Amleth, who is wounded as Fjolnir, asks Amleth to meet with him at the gates of Hell and have a fight where Fjolnir is dead and Amleth is exhausted, but he dies as well. And the climax did fall apart, but it is beautifully shot, and the acting in this is pretty good. Not great, I hate to say, but pretty good. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 6.9 out of 10. The movie is well shot, and it is beautifully made, but it's a little bit of a long movie, as 10 minutes of it could have cut, or I should say 15 minutes could have been cut out of the movie. Like a few scenes that made this movie a comedy, or even though it's not supposed to be. The performances are pretty good, as Alexander Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy have good chemistry towards each other, and the nighttime shots are drop-dead gorgeous, as Robert Eggers has a vision. At the end of the day, it was a rough watch, as I wouldn't watch this movie again after a week, I would say. I did that, unfortunately, but let's move on. But after a week after seeing it the first time, as it's graphic, it's brutal, and at times it's unpleasant, and it's not as good as The Lighthouse, and not as boring slash bad, not as bad, boring movie like The Witch. So it's a recommendable movie, I'll say. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this Robert Eggers biopic. And until then, you have vision, Robert. You have vision.